Hello and welcome to today's Republican Voice. I'm Barry Greenspan. I'm the producer and your host. I'm also a former member and a former chairman of the Malden Republican City Committee, and I'm currently an associate member of the Medford Republican City Committee. I'd like to welcome back Bob Parks. Bob, this is your third visit to the show.
Yeah, I'm becoming a regular.
Regular? Well, you are Washington, D.C. correspondent. How does that sound?
That's
for a cable TV show, that's
I'll take it, sure.
a lot. Bob, 2010, the election is in the record books. Scale of 1 to 10. How pleased were you with the results nationwide?
No, I definitely think we would have to look at it as an 8.
An 8?
But of course, when it comes to states like California and Massachusetts, that's probably what took it from being a 10 down to an 8, because what was expected pretty much happened.
I'm going to give you a good example of one man's observation. Where you are recording here at the Malden Access TV studio, and our executive director is Ron Cox, and he hosts a local talk show that's called Live on Tape, and he has his own monologue, and he commented that when you look at the election results, the middle of the United States, red, Republican, but the coastal regions were blue. Says, looks like the United States is in parentheses. So that's basically what happened there.
There's some people who get it, and some people who, and you know, I can understand the ideology behind people's votes. I mean, no matter what damage gets inflicted on you by one party or one particular ideology, you'll still stick by your own and vote against your better interests. It happens all the time. For example, in the black community, the black community votes 90 to 95% for Democrats. You would think over the last half century of seeing just how wonderful the black community is as far as employment, as far as their out-of-wedlock birth rates, the great public schools that public officials would never send their own kids to, that at some point you might think that it was time to try something else. They never do. And so you look at Deval Patrick, who just a year ago was polling in the mid to low 30s. You look at Martha Coakley, who was embarrassed nationally. You look at Barney Frank and his record as far as Fannie and Freddie. While the rest of the country got it, they still voted to put these clowns back in. And the same in California, where you had Jerry Brown,
Governor Moonbeam.
got reelected.
Governor Moonbeam.
Barbara Boxer, you know, who worked so hard for her title that you better call me Senator General. I mean, these people got back in not because of their track records, but purely because of the letter behind their name. And people at some point have to drink the dumpster water in order to get it.
Question, you mentioned, of course, the black community, and you are active with 2 black organizations. At least one is the Black Republicans, National Black Republican Association.
I write every once in a while. I'm not really, because of my job with the Media Research Center, I can't really align myself with a lot of groups. I also do, you were going to get to Project 21, which I am a media spokesperson for. And the other purpose for Project 21 is not to endorse candidates or anything like that, but whenever, for example, something happens, if something happened here in Malden, like a crime or something, would they go looking for the Irish spokesperson for the Irish community or the Italian But for some reason,
you got it.
In the minds of the left, if something happens in the black community, you got to go to Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton to interpret for the rest of the country what was behind the thinking. And so purely for that reason, Project 21, we get out there and offer an alternative point of view, just so the liberals who seem to believe that since we all look alike, we all vote and think alike, there is another side that can be offered.
But the reason I was asking, the 2 new, the Congressman-elect,
Tim Scott and
Ellen West. This is something, would you have thought a year ago that would have been possible?
I was hoping that there would be more.
Well, there were 32 that were, at least in primaries, or on the general election ballot, black Republicans. But course, when the smoke cleared,
Well,
2 did get elected, which again, thinking how long has it been since J.C. Watts was in Congress? It's like 15 years or more.
sure.
Or not, no, I don't believe it was that long. I'll take it back. It's more like 2003, I believe he left.
Right.
He served for about 10. And, well, Alan West defeated an incumbent, which was something that, of course that happened. He wasn't the only one that did.
There was a lot of that this year.
Right. But now Tim Scott, did he represent a predominantly black district?
I don't think so.
No.
And it was wasn't it Strom Thurmond?
Was the opponent, the son.
But it was right. He was going up against. He beat Strom Thurmond
in the Republican primary.
So that dispelled a lot of the quote unquote myths of the Tea Party being racist, black or just Republicans being racist. But to see at the same time, a lot of the black Republicans who did win, or who did go far,
Right.
did so in predominantly white districts, because in the black districts, the Democrats are always going to win.
Right.
So at some point, we field candidates because we need to.
Sure.
But I think in this particular case, it was the predominantly white districts that elected Alan West.
Right.
And in fact, I'm going to be interviewing Tim Scott down the D.C. area, and we're going to avoid black issues.
Of course.
Because that's the one thing that they were going to naturally expect.
Sure.
A black Republican. All we're going to talk about is race issues, as if that's all we think about.
True.
And Tim Scott was elected because of a lot of national issues that have gained a lot of attention and prominence over the last
Now, he was
year.
a state legislator in South Carolina first.
I believe so.
He was either state representative or something. And the other question I had is with Alan West, and he's the one that got most of the publicity around the nation through, Rush Limbaugh, and everybody would interview him, his military record. Now, he actually ran previously in 2008, but lost. So
No, a lot of us got caught up in the McCain wake.
Sure.
And
True.
and plus it was also the time of hope and change. It was a historic election.
Sure.
There were people, and especially the young people, who didn't turn out in the midterm because this election, the election of Barack Obama, was not just about electing the first black president. A lot of it was about them as well.
Right.
They wanted to be part of something.
Right.
So since Barack Obama was not on the ballot, and this election was not all about them,
Right.
they didn't show.
True.
And it greatly hurt the Democrats.
Sure.
The whole theme of the last election was that finally a good amount of the population gets it.
Right.
And I think a lot of it was because of the discipline of the Republican Party nationally. The stimulus package that I believe all the Republicans voted against, the health care reform, quote unquote, that all the Republicans voted against.
Of course, that's what elected Scott Brown here in this state.
Well,
It was an effort to...
Scott Brown,
All right, another subject.
That's another subject. But the point is, the Republican Party got it, and the nation got it. The Republican Party, by all showing solidarity, all voting against these two things that the rest of the country didn't want, meant that the Democrats had this hanging over their heads solely. You see, now let's look at Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a real wheel spinner. We have good people every 2 years
True.
that stick their necks out. So in some cases, spend their own money because of the lack of support from the state party, which is again another topic for another show. And the problem is, no matter how hard, how good their persuasive argument is against voting against your self-interest. Right. Look at all the jobs that have left this state. Look at the people who've left this state. And we're getting to the point now, we're getting more takers than people who are actually putting into the economy. What was it, the day after the election, there was that announcement by this company that was in Barney Frank's district that they were going to lay off 650 people, that for some reason they waited till the day after the election for that. Sure. You've got so many, the tax base is fleeing Massachusetts. But yet, no matter what, how diametrically opposed the self-interest is to actually the way people vote. They'll still vote to put people in who are in it, and I'll be blunt, are in it for themselves.
Or they're gluttons for punishment.
Or they're in it, make sure their family members get in. So, you know, if I was the president or the chair of the Mass Republican Party, and I know that there's some rumblings going on again with leadership,